Hello, I'm Ed Rabyd, also known as the Rabyd Atheist, a former pastor turned atheist, now a compassionate anti-atheist. Welcome to my channel. You're free to like or dislike the video, so feel free to hit those buttons. Feel free to comment below, and I would appreciate it if you would subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more content as it is released. You're also free to share my videos. My main purpose with this channel is to continue to educate people on the issues of why I think the Bible is fairy tales, why I think theology is theories on theoretics that don't exist, and a continued discussion on thoughts about deconversion and atheism and why I've chosen that path. I'm just one voice among many in the YouTube community, but I think I have something to offer as far as the uniqueness of my story. So with that said, this is week 26's video, and so this is my half-year mark, my half-year anniversary. As kind of a anniversary present, I have kind of picked up 5 followers in the last couple days, and I now find myself with 32 of them, which is a major jump in the last week. So thank you, all of you that have come on board to the Rabyd Atheist. I appreciate that more than you know. This week, of course, I'm going to do what I always do. This is how I address my comments in my comment section. I think this is allows me a little bit more time to think about it, and also I think when you can see somebody's face and hear their gestures and hear the inflection of voice, you can also get more of the gist of what they're commenting about and how they're commenting. I've lost track of the number of times where people misread the tone of what you write or whatever, and I find that video responses tend to do a little bit better as far as keeping the anger level low, generating more light than heat. But this week's comments are, I only did one other video this week, and I do apologize for that again. It's just I'm trying to focus on the tall tale of Jesus as my main thing right now. I want to actually get a little bit into the ministry of Jesus. But I did get a lot of comments from last week's Friday video when I talked about how church services reinforce indoctrination. And today I'm kind of responding to some of the responses to that, which I've had several all week long. Freebird of Reason writes, brilliant. It's interesting to see the way you speak about emotion in church. I'm an emotional person, so I was a Christian that used emotion to witness to others. I could have tears in my eyes when I was trying to persuade at a time that I really believed. When I did evangelism from the pulpit or face-to-face, it very much hinged on emotion. Now, I was an amateur apologist, so I had all these canned answers that a lot of apologists have. But slowly I began to discover that most of those apologetic answers were garbage. Probably the most famous ones that people do, 10 questions that atheists can't answer or whatever. And then you would go and research that question and discover that the atheist had not only answered that question 100 times, but the answer was fairly effective. But it didn't stop the apologists from continuing to say that the atheists have never answered this question, even though it's been 5 years since it's been proposed. So what is that about? It's about emotion. When apologists speak, it's interesting that they don't generally debate people outside the faith. When they speak most of the time, they're talking to people of faith for the most part. And they're offering up their opinions on things. So a lot of what apologetics does is reinforce things, but the regular part of church service reinforces faith through emotion. It's very much an emotional thing. Even if you go to a very liturgical church, it's about the emotion, about the imagery and the music and the whole, being inside a church. My last church had stained glass windows, a high ceiling, which is smart, and it made in an era before there was electric sound systems and things like that. So you have a really good echo for singing and choirs and stuff like that. And so there's a whole emotional genre behind all of that. And religion takes advantage of that. It is a very old technique that just so happens to work because we have a tendency to have our passions rule our reason. Which, I think it's Wizard's second rule, I think. Passion rules reason, but, the first being people are stupid. But it's the interest of looking at this from a religion standpoint is that emotion brings out what we want, not necessarily what's reality, but what we want, and it tugs at our heartstrings. He goes on, I noticed that one of many thoughts that I used to reason my way out of church was that the people in the church were related. If God was calling people to the Spirit, it should be a mix of different people. I could see that I was adding another family. This was not God calling people, families pushing beliefs on children. If a person goes into a beautiful old church, there's a feeling we get. Stained glass windows, candles, majestic echo, how many bricks we need to remove until that feeling has gone. Just like the bricks and stained glass, as more modern church has music, overhead projectors, preaching, a good keyboard player works well, gospel music, and also drums up the emotion. It's all just persuasion, playing with emotion. I couldn't agree more. The real problem as a pastor, when I finally deconverted and I began to look at my service, I'm like, how is it that I couldn't see this before? It's because there's an emotional heartstring. One of the big ones for me, I haven't really relayed this part of my story in detail before, but when I was in seminary, my father died. Okay, and at the time, I was going through seminary and I was learning higher criticism in theology classes and biblical studies classes. I was learning all these great theologians. I was studying the neo-orthodox, like Karl Barth and some of the other ones. And as I was reading Karl Barth had this deep faith, but he had would acknowledge that the critics of the Bible were absolutely correct, but he felt we needed to hold on to faith for holding on to faith's sake because it was good for humanity. And I suddenly realized that was very dishonest. To me, it was a very dishonest position to take. And when I began to deconstruct all this, and then my father died, and the whole tenor of that funeral service, the whole tenor of the church at the time was, hey, Ed, stick with what you're doing, you'll see your dad again. And when you're a 20-something-year-old man who has just lost your father, that appeals. That is an emotional appeal that is hard to shake. And so even though I was learning all these things that were wrong with the Bible in seminary, I stuck with my faith because I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to see my dad again. And it's that kind of, it's well-meaning emotionalism, but there's no proof of it. There's no positive nature of it. It doesn't work that way. And I think that's the real problem with a lot of what happens in church is it's done with a smile and a hug. People think indoctrination has to be this, sleep deprivation, abuse, all this other stuff. It doesn't have to be that way. A lot of people can be very easily indoctrinated and have that indoctrination reinforced simply by good music, good company, and a message that, seems positive and offers hope for the future, even if that hope is completely fabricated. And that's the problem with religion. Religion has this ability to do that. And so there you have it. Jonathan Genish puts in, most Christian music sounds the same. It's designed to be extremely sentimentally emotional, almost to the point of being nerdy teeny bop love song. Don't believe in, just listen to Hillsong. I used to listen to Hillsong a lot. I love their worship music. You can't deny that they're very talented at doing what they do. I remember after 9/11, they sent out their CD of whatever it was. I think it was You Are My World. And that, at the time, being a strong believer still at that time, it was a very emotional roller coaster ride that really kind of kept me. And I love this comment because I look back at it now and think to myself, you're singing love songs that I could easily change the words to and sing it to a girlfriend or a wife, and it wouldn't change anything. Or you could sing it to your boyfriend, significant other, or whatever, and it wouldn't change a thing. A couple other comments away from that video. Destroy Saturn. Great name, by the way, dude. And he commented on the Immoral Bible. I have a series called The Immoral Bible, which only had one episode. the Bible's failure to deal with slavery and why it doesn't. And the Bible preaches morality, ethics against sin, but allows slavery because slavery is too profitable to abolish. And you know what? That's exactly the problem, and why slavery lasted so damn long is because it's very profitable. It took the Enlightenment. It took people getting away from the religious mucky-muck and starting to use their reason to say, no, it's more profitable to have everybody work together and pay people their value to the project instead of hoarding it. And then everybody has a vested interest in the project and prosperity is spread around. But religion and an era, this is, what I just described a few seconds ago, actually, is very rare in history. Up until very recently, you didn't really hear about this idea of, paying wages, that wage-earning workers actually work better and work harder than anything else. And so, yeah, I think it was a lot about profitability. But the slave laws in the Old Testament are particularly damning because it's clearly nationalistic, because the Israelites are basically saying we were justified in taking slaves from the nations around us and enslaving them forever, but we're not going to have that do it to our own people. And so it was definitely a dichotomy of slavery there. So we want slavery to be profitable to our own people, but not necessarily to the people around us. Another one, Destroyed Standard, week 221A, Comics Bible, Biblical Mythology and Numbers, 31:18-25. This is why Christians need to say, but that's the Old Testament. Yeah, it does, except I would add to that the New Testament is still biblical mythology. My whole point of the tall tale of Jesus is to point out that this is a tall tale, that this is a legend, that this is mythology. Now, I'm not going to say it's all mythology. I think there really was a Jesus of Nazareth. I just also think that he was just nothing more than a teacher. And originally his disciples seemed to just be content to preserve his teachings. It's not until you get Mark who decides to add a narrative, and then Luke and Matthew and John, and then you have all these other gospels, and each retelling of the story gets weirder and weirder. And that's why I say it's mythology too. It's not that the character is mythological, it's what begins to grow around them. That's why I kind of use the analogy of the tall tale. Here in the United States, we have several tall tales. We have Pecos Bill, the best cowboy ever, probably a conglomerate character of a bunch of other cowboys that did some pretty miraculous things, but the tale just got bigger and bigger. Paul Bunyan's a lumberjack. We knew John Henry, for instance, may have been a real guy, and so was Johnny Appleseed. But as their tales got told, they became more and more mythological. They had a lot of weirdness to them. I mean, just look up urban legends sometimes, and you will see how something simple became such a huge story within a few years. With the biblical account of even Jesus or any of this stuff, we're talking hundreds, decades, hundreds of years passing before the story is actually written down. So yeah, they got embellished. And so, that's just a given. Back to the week 25 video, Lorna, just a day ago, she says, wow, I stumbled across your channel and it's exactly what I was searching for. Thank you for this video, as well as all of Eric. I'm working my way through. One of my biggest resentments going through my own discussion has come to realize how manipulative church is at playing on people's emotions as opposed to logic and reason. I suppose it has no ground to stand on there. I rarely see it talked about, so it was cathartic to hear it said. I know it's a slow build, but I really hope you keep putting out your videos. They're very substantive, and it really makes a difference. Well done. Oh, first of all, I got to say thank you. Thank you very much. I know what it was like to go through my own deconstruction as a minister while I was still in the pulpit preaching. And so, this is why I call myself a compassionate anti-theist. There's other atheists out there that have no patience or compassion for people that used to be Christians that become atheists. They're like, well, you were just dumb all that time. it's not that you're dumb. There's plenty of smart people that are Christians, that are good Christian Science people. There are people that, and I'm not talking about the cult, I'm talking about they're Christians and they're also scientists. There's plenty of people that are very logical, very reasonable, and also happen to have these irrational beliefs in various religions. So I understand them, and I'm very compassionate towards them because I know what it's like. Lorna, keep hanging in there. I appreciate the comment, but you're right. A lot of the deconstruction is the emotional deconstruction. It's not intellectual so much. I think this is one of the mistakes that atheists can make when they're looking at somebody who is a Christian and can't figure out why they're still a Christian given all the evidence against it. It's emotion, okay? It's that there's an emotional attachment to the faith. And when you have an emotional attachment to something, it's very difficult to get over. And so, yeah, the biggest challenge of emotional deconstruction in the church is just this understanding that indoctrination doesn't have to be cultic. It doesn't have to be food deprivation and sleep deprivation and then, subjecting people to all this other bullshit and sexual abuse and taking all their money and all that crap. It doesn't have to be that. The smart religious indoctrination does it with a smile, a hug on the shoulder, and the only amount of money they ask for is 10%. Let you keep 90, don't care. And that's kind of how it works. The vast majority of Christianity in the United States, this is the way they indoctrinate, because it's like, we've always done this, we're a Christian nation. I believe that the Christian nation thing is a myth. I don't think we were founded as a Christian nation. I can once again recommend Andrew Seidel's book, The Founding Myth, because he takes that on in great detail, and it's a great book, and it's well researched, and it's well documented, which is even bonuses, because when people, where did you get that? And it's like, well, this is what George Washington actually said, or this is what Thomas Jefferson actually said about this, and where it comes from. And this is the debates, the Second Continental Congress debates that formed your Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So you can have that. I'm happy people stumble across my channel and go, because I know a lot of atheists out there that have been deconverted, but and they talk about the intellectual beliefs so that they disappeared from. But I talk a little bit more about the emotional attachment, because that's the reason why the vast majority of people stick with their faith, is its emotional attachment. They had a loved one that died they want to see again. They have, they don't want to take a chance on missing out. They don't want to die themselves. They want some deeper meaning and purpose to their life, and their religion or faith gives it to them. The thing about all that is, once you wake up from it, it's the emotions become more about how the hell do I come up with a purpose for my life, and how the hell do I relate emotionally to other people without all the religion involved. And it's a difficult thing, because you've had this emotional attachment to something for a while. And it's a real codependent relationship, by the way, this emotional attachment. And you dump it, it's kind of like, whoa, just kind of woke up. But I do thank you. If they make a difference, this is why I do this. I really don't do this for the money. If the channel grows to a point and my life grows to a point where it makes me a little money, great. I'll take it. But to be honest, I do it right now because I care that people don't waste their time. 14 hours ago, talking about the Tall Tale Jesus, my latest one on the ministry of John the Baptist. As you were speaking about dates, it's got to be thinking. I have been looking for a way that we use this AD/BC to date from zero. I've heard it said that this is a historic reference to something that happened that reset the calendar. It seems the Julian calendar was introduced in 45 BC, and 471 to 500 Dionysius introduced another calendar to get away from the Julian calendar. I know we're off topic here a little, but I've heard it said something that evidence of this event must have taken place. Or am I right that year 1 or 47 years Julian calendar, and the religious monks lined it up to fit Christianity? If this makes sense, Take care and have a great day. Oh, I get what you're saying about the whole Julian calendar, the calendar issue. Regardless of how it came about, for years people felt that the 0 year was the year of Jesus' birth. It became very clear as we began to drop historical things into the calendar that couldn't be, and it got pushed back to 4 BC. Now, people need to remember that when you have a 0 year, that 1 BC to 0 is a year, and 0 to 1 is a year. So some people forget that there's a couple years in there, that you have to take account for because of the 0. 0 is a very interesting concept in and of itself because it's not common in all mathematics around the world, or ancient mathematics. It is now, but the concept of mathematical 0 is actually a very revolutionary idea when it came out. But when I look at these calendar issues, the biggest issue, of course, in the life of Christ is that Herod the Great probably died in 6 BC. If Jesus lived, he would have been born in 4 BC. So there's no way that Jesus was 2 years old, which would have been about 2 BC, and by that time Herod the Great has been dead for, 4 years, 5 years. There was just no way that was true. And some of the other calendar events don't line up. Quirinius is a governor of Syria. He's governor of some other province up in Asia Minor, and he's not even the full governor. He's an assistant. So, I'm not trying to be rude here, but when the Bible does make some historical references, often the issue is dating issues, like this, the calendar issues. But there's something must have happened there with the calendar. Okay, let me give you, I think several, Christian celebrities have made that, it's right there on the calendar, it says so, what do we do with this calendar, at 0 BC, we're marking some years from what? Well, Jesus. It's Jesus. Therefore, we need to believe in Jesus, and you have all kinds of other things, different references to the different days. Now, if that's the case, though, and that's why we worship God, then there's some cause to question what gods we worship, because the days of the week, as anybody who knows anything about Norse mythology will tell you, in America and Europe, Norse mythology had a lot of domination on the days of the week. You have Sunday, which is a date of the sun. Monday is Moon Day. Tuesday is actually Tyr's Day, to the god of war and justice, Tyr, of the Norse pantheon. You have Wednesday, which has been bastardized. It used to be Woden's Day, or Odin. Woden is another name for Odin, which is the chief of the Norse mythos. So Wednesday is a day dedicated every week to him. Of course, Thursday is Thor's Day. Friday is either Frigg's Day, Freya's Day, or Freyr's Day. So there's 3 gods that all kind of start the same, so it became Friday. Saturday is a dedication to the Roman god Saturn. Then the months themselves, you have, June to the Greek god, the Roman god Juno. You go through all of them, and some of them are just numbers, like Sept is, 9, Oct is 10, 7, and then Oct, is 8, and then, Nav is 9, and then you have Dec, which is 10. July is Julius Caesar. When we look at the calendar and people want to offer that up as proof of something happened X number of years ago, well, what the hell do all these names of the days of the week and the months prove? That the Romans were gods, that the Roman gods were true, that the Norse gods were true. Sorry, our calendar is a mishmash of a lot of different faiths, but ultimately you pick a point on a thing and you start measuring days, and that's how calendars develop. We look at the world around us and we try to figure out what we need to do next. That's the end of the comments so far for this week, and I want to thank everybody for putting it. I do have one more announcement regarding some of the activities that I'm doing right now, which is one of the things that I'm engaged in, is I'm going to speak on August 2nd to the Lake Superior Freethinkers Association. I wanted to point that out. Now, they're based in Duluth, Minnesota, and I was originally going to go up there as part of a vacation with my wife, but as it turns out, thanks to COVID, that's not going to happen. In fact, that vacation was supposed to happen in June, and then they moved everything around, changed my date to August. So we'll be speaking basically on a forum online, and I want to make this announcement that I'll be doing that. If they get it recorded and the video is recorded, I'll probably drop that video on this channel on that Sunday or Monday as the video for that time slot for that week. It's going to be me talking about the Clergy Project and deconversion and my own personal story. So it's one of those things that, just became an opportunity through the Clergy Project, and I definitely wanted to take up on that. Any opportunity that I can to speak about the deconversion issues, I'm always welcome to do that. But once again, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you stopping by. Like, subscribe, get your notifications as you see fit. One thing I don't really tolerate is name calling in the comments. You're more than welcome to engage somebody. Just make sure you're following the rules of etiquette. Be nice to each other. Be kind to each other. There's enough meanness on the internet, particularly on YouTube. But ad hominem attack, I consider the most base form of logical fallacy, and really needs to be eliminated from the planet as much as possible. But it doesn't really help anything. It doesn't prove anything. So thank you for avoiding that, and hopefully someday I can convince you to be a rabid atheist like myself. In the meantime, this is Rabyd, also known as the Rabid Atheist, wishing you a good day and signing off.